Well, when things are down and out, you can always depend on the New York Mets. That's right. My name is Ryan Bershinger. This is the Sick Podcast, the Dodgers Zone. And the Dodgers had a 5-game skid there. But luckily, they got to play the Mets. And so all was right in the world. They swept them within like 30 hours. So we're going to dive into, yes, the 3-game sweep of the Mets, but also that 5-game losing streak, what happened there, and why there's one complaint that I don't want to hear from fans anymore.
Ryan has a lot to get off his chest in this episode. And just when you thought there's no way Shohei Ohtani could become a better hitter, but he is becoming a better hitter. And we're going to talk about that. I'm Monse Bolaños.
That's right. Again, this is the Sick Podcast, the Dodger Zone. Just the two of us today. Let's have some fun.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the Sick Podcast. The Dodger Zone.
Strike three. Dodgers have won it all in 2020.
Fernando Valenzuela has pitched a no-hitter at 10:17 in the evening of June the 29th, 1990. If you have a sombrero, throw it to the sky.
The sickest LA Dodgers podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Yeah, a 5-game losing streak, Monse, and the offense completely died. But as I said, there's no better friend in Major League Baseball than the New York Mets. When you're down and out, they slap you on the back and say, you know what? You could use a few wins here. Let's botch some grounders. Let's just completely fall apart, and let's hit even less than you. Oh man, good. Thank you, New York Mets. You are really just the kindest, sweetest friend out there.
Yeah, no, I really was worried about what we were going to talk about after that 5-game skid, because it had been one of the longest skids, since 2019, I think?
Yeah, longest in 5 years.
It just was not what I wanted to talk about, but you're right. And not to make fun of the Mets, but man, what could go wrong went wrong for the Mets, including Pete Alonso getting hit by a pitch and having to leave the game. It was just like, wow. And then, of course, the Dodgers decide to just have fun against the Mets. And like you said, in like a matter of 30 hours, swept them, 3-game series. They didn't seem to have any issues. All of a sudden, everyone seems to be feeling themselves again. But man, when we have those skids, when we have those games, it's really hard to pretend that it doesn't affect me as a Dodgers fan.
Oh yeah. It affected a lot of people. Trust me. You go on Twitter during that skid, like people were losing their minds. People were already firing Robert Van Scoyoc. Like there was, people were going through it, and honestly, like fair. Like it was rough because the offense just completely disappeared, and you can't help but watch them disappear and think like, oh yeah, we've seen this before in the most important games they've played in the last 2 years. We've seen this act before, and it sucks.
That's what it is. It's like we've seen it before. We've seen it at the worst times, and we're approaching like a third of the way into the season. So ideally, you're like, no, like just get them out now. But it's hard for a postpartum depression from like the experience of being a Dodgers fan. And like literally, and it was, there was a point where hitters 5 through 9 went for a combined 0 for 16. Like you're just like, you can't do this. You are the LA Dodgers, and for what you have on the roster, like that is not okay. And it's hard to like not be hard on the Dodgers when again we're only a third into the season because of the history. Like it's hard to not be mad, and it's hard to not let it affect you.
Your point about the back half of the lineup, especially, and that's kind of a big point that I wanted to make. One thing that we were missing throughout that 5-game series, and people overlook this, I really have felt for years that Max Muncy is so incredibly undervalued in terms of what he does for the lineup itself. And of course, his defensive versatility, he doesn't play fantastic defense, but he's always been willing to change and move positions and give serviceable defense. He's been better defensively at third than you would have really expected him to be. But what he does in the middle of that lineup, even when the lineup's struggling, the guy works counts like crazy. That's how he's always been. He's the most patient hitter in baseball. And when he does make contact, he can hit the ball very far. He can provide that offensive jolt. He also is that kind of bulldog mentality who, when he fights through at bats and when he's able to get on base, like, you get that celebration, you get that aggression, a very positive aggression from Max Muncy. But I think the most important thing is the fact that I don't want to hear people ever complain about Max Muncy in the lineup again. Yes, I understand. Sometimes his batting average will fall below 200, but guess what? His on base will still stay above 300. He will still hit 30 home runs and 100 RBIs in the season. And he works counts like crazy. And when your entire offense is slumping, you need a guy in the middle of that lineup who can remain patient, make the pitcher work, because eventually those pitchers working more will pay dividends later on in the game. So I think that that's a big thing that's been completely overlooked, is the loss of Max Muncy in the middle of the lineup affects the entire lineup. So Max, get healthy soon. I don't want to hear anyone ever complain about Max Muncy again. Let's end it there.
Max is one of those few players that could have a bad batting average, right? Low 200s. Let's say it even dips into the 100s. But yet he goes up to the plate and you still have hope that he's going to hit the ball, and that he's going to hit the ball in a, bases loaded situation, down by a run or two. There's never a time where Max Muncy goes up to the plate and you're like, oh, this is going to be an easy one. It doesn't matter what his batting average is, because he has delivered in big moments when you are down and when you need it. He has done it multiple times. So I'm with you. He's one of those few where it's like, yeah, the batting average may be low, but he can always do it. And there's always that feeling like there is hope. He gives you hope every single time. And I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I have complained about Max Muncy.
I know.
I'm not saying I'm not gonna do it anymore, but I agree with what you are saying, Brian, that we do miss him in the lineup. And it's because of that. It's like he always gives you hope, regardless of the situation. And again, has delivered in big moments, has walked it off with the Dodgers in the World Series. Like, he has done it. And so he is a big missing piece right now. Even though, yeah.
And that's what we're going to see as we approach the summer, and as we get towards the trade deadline. We're going to be having conversations a lot about how the Dodgers are going to approach the trade deadline. And this last week especially has shown, like, even with today, for example, where the bullpen is rolling out Yohan Ramirez and Eliezer Hernandez and Anthony Banda, who, like, what? Okay. But still, despite that, like, the pitching is not an area of concern in terms of where they're going to target guys at the deadline. As we've seen over the last week, they're going to need to find ways to lengthen that lineup. Now, thankfully, we got to shine a light on Miguel Rojas because he's performed rather well, especially in today's game. 4 hits, coming through with runners on base late in the game, and always playing exceptional defense. Speaking of guys who are just incredibly undervalued, I've been saying all along, I think Rojas should still be the everyday shortstop. And the guy's hitting 280 now, it's been a very quiet 280. And that's really impressive. Sure, he doesn't have a ton of pop, but he's gotten a couple out here and there. And the fact that he's getting hits, getting on base, and playing defense at the level that he can play it, I say keep rolling with Rojas at short, because I still don't believe in Mookie as a long-term solution at shortstop. His defense at short has been like a guy who is still learning the position. I'd rather have Mookie at second. So it was good to see Rojas get another game at short. And in fairness to Kike Hernandez and Chris Taylor, in Muncy's absence, they've both actually played pretty decently defensively at third. But seeing Rojas produce at the end of the lineup, Hayward got a hold of a couple today, and that looked really good, because for the last week he was not looking good. Gavin Lux is riding those waves like crazy. We're going to see them definitely target a bat that's going to help the end of the lineup more so. Guys like Tyler O'Neill, who keeps getting hurt. Hopefully he's, if he recovers once again, he should be taking the field again in the next couple of days. But his power is legitimate, and he's got that 1-year deal in Boston where it makes sense, unless the Braves jump on him as they should without Acuna now. There's guys like that who I think stand out. We've talked about Willy Adames, but if the Brewers are still like competing, it's hard to see them moving him. So we'll get more into trade deadline stuff, over the next month. But overall, seeing Rojas produce at the back end of the lineup, that was a big difference in today's ball game. As you pointed out, the weaknesses when 5 through 9 is just not producing. Then it doesn't allow any room for error for 1 through 4. And for those 5 games, the top of the lineup wasn't doing anything either. So if the couple guys who need to carry the lineup are slumping, then everybody's going to slump. And that's what happens. It's baseball. Those things can happen. But also it did look really, really bad there. And so hopefully this is a bit of a wake-up call.
Yes, it looked bad. That's what it was. It just like really made you uncomfortable to watch those games because everybody looked lost. Now, Miguel Rojas, unfortunately for him, you're saying that maybe he's not getting enough credit. I agree with you, but I think that's just what's going to happen when you're surrounded by all these other stars. Like you're not going to get the credit you deserve when you deserve it. And I agree. When he gets up to the plate, I feel comfortable. I feel like he's going to get on base. Like every single time he goes on there, he looks more and more comfortable. And with Mookie, yeah, like I feel bad for him because, man, the expectation of like just deliver in whatever position they want you to play for that day, whether it's second, short, eventually we probably should see him back in the outfield at some point. Mm-hmm. But expecting him to also lead off, like there's just so much on his shoulder that I feel like just let Rojas stay at shortstop. Like I don't understand why we're forcing it down our throats that Mookie needs to play shortstop. Is it just because it's like a better looking position for a player like Mookie? You know what I'm saying? Like the shortstop is always a stud. Like, is that why we're forcing this? Because he should be the stud and he is a stud. But let's just keep him at second base and like you said, like actually get into a rhythm. Because right now, right, it's like, what are we going to do in the later half of the season? That's what I'm wondering. Like, what are you looking to when it comes to the second half? Our pitching has not been an issue, knock on fake wood, because that hasn't been the issue. In fact, everyone seems to be delivering, and we're supposed to get Evan Phillips back. He's already making progress towards coming back, so that's always good because he was closing the shit out of games, and we know that. But like seeing Hayward get the hits, Gavin Lux still up and down there, it was a nice. It didn't leave the bad taste in my mouth that I had for days when we were in that skid. It really took that bad taste out of the mouth. Just even though it was the Mets, it was necessary for the fans to not lose our minds defending the Dodgers when people want to talk smack. You know what I'm saying? Like, it took away that bad taste because that is what it is. It is a bad taste that is hard to get rid of because of the history of the Dodgers and what they like to do, which is not hit the ball.
I don't want to make it sound like we're, piling on the Mets in any way, but listen, like, it was bad. Like that first game of the doubleheader, they had Tyler McGill just shredding the Dodgers lineup. But then they also really couldn't do anything. Lindor got a hold of one against Glasnow, and that was it. And then you had that inning where kind of everything fell apart. Yeah, Brett Beatty dropped a double play ball. Then they had another Ohtani legged out a would-be double play ball. And then Chris Taylor had his best hit of the season, which was a bunt. And they did not know what to do with it. They kind of bobble it around. They get the run in. That was the game, too, where also it's tied 2-2 in the bottom of the ninth. And they had a 3-0 count with 1 out. And Daniel Hudson proceeded to get 2 straight pop outs. And Jeff McNeil took his bat and threw it to the Bronx. Like it was a scene. And after that game, you will always see, we work with Mets fans. And so we kind of know what the mentality of Mets fans are, where they're always complaining about how miserable it is to be a Mets fan. And sometimes you're kind of like, I mean, but that's also just baseball, right? Like you guys, it can't be that bad. And then you watch them play and you're like, wow, thank God I'm not a Mets fan because this is awful. Like, this is really, really infuriating. I get it. I am sorry, Mets fan. That's awful.
I think they're on pace to lose like 96 games. Like they are not doing well. And losing Pete Alonso, I know we don't know the details of it, but that hit looked like he was in pain. He was like not about that life.
Yeah.
And so like it's unfortunate that you suck that much, but it's really good for the Dodgers. Like mentally, morally, it is really good for the Dodgers.
We got to visit the Mets at the perfect time. It was the best possible time to play the New York Mets, and it just everything ended up going the Dodgers' way. And they didn't really dominate them in that first game. They were lucky to get that first game out, and then the Mets were just terrible the next two games. Really, and it just continued to get worse and worse. Of course, game 3 was tied late in the game, and then it ends up being 10-3. Like that was just that team just fell apart. Edwin Diaz, in a span of 2 weeks, became a shell of himself, and I guess he's hurt. But also, it seems like his spirit is also injured at this point. It's probably just being on the Mets. That will do it to a guy.
Terrible, but it's so true, and it sucks. It sucks to see it. It really is. And I think the first 2 games, Ohtani didn't even have a hit. Really, the final score, game 3 was the one that it really did look like more of a total domination than the first 2 games, which were a doubleheader on the same day. But it's not looking good for the Mets, and we apologize to you guys.
Yes. Well, you bring up Ohtani. And first, Monse, I have to be fair, and I have to address this.
Okay.
Shohei Ohtani was playing through a hamstring injury.
Of course he was. Of course he was.
And he was not producing. Now, I think can we now agree? If he's not 100%, it's okay. If he takes a day off here and there, it's fine.
No. I'm gonna need you out there. I don't care. You are the face of the Dodgers, and if you can, unless it's really, I know hamstring injuries are scary. Kawhi Leonard. I know, get it. Yes, okay. but I don't know. I'm still feeling the no. You need to play. If you can play, I need you to play. I know it's a long season, and we don't want this to be something that affects you later on. But people want to see you. Go out there, Mamba mentality. And he did fine in the third game. He was fine.
He did.
Yeah.
And in fairness too, the one game he got off was the second game of a doubleheader. So if you came to the ballpark to see him that day, you probably got to see him. Just stick around for both. I get it. Okay, you're committing an entire day to watching the New York Mets. I'm sorry. I know that's tough, but you did get to see Ohtani for 9 innings. So
this is what I'm saying. And we really do have to discuss, Ryan, how the fact that he's actually getting better as a hitter. Just when you thought there's no way the reigning AL MVP is going to get better at hitting, he's already amazing. Well, he's still working on it. He is hitting more on the opposite side of the field than he did last year. And it's just makes me realize that he's just closing all the holes that we think he has at the plate. There aren't no holes. You can't pitch to Shohei. He's going to do whatever he wants. Last year, he had 44 home runs. Only 4 of them went to the opposite field. So now he has 14. He hit a home run Wednesday in the third game against the Mets to wrap up the series, and it was on the opposite side of the field. So 3 of them this year already on the opposite side of the field. Last year, he had 21 opposite field hits. This year, he already has 26. He is just really figuring out where to put the ball. And this isn't new, you guys. I'm not saying that. Last year, he did hit the ball well going opposite side of the field. His 21st home run last year was 453 feet. feet opposite side of the field. So it's not that it's new. I know it's so annoying, right? Like, how do you do this? How? It's just he's doing it more, and he's doing it early on, and it's just I'm just amazed by it. Like, how? Just when I was like, there's no way you can get better at hitting, he is getting better at hitting. What?
It's incredible. It's incredible. It just shows like how. I mean, we harp on it all the time, but the man's the best hitter in baseball, and the fact that he can use the entire field, especially for a left-handed, like it's harder for lefties to use the entire field in that manner, and the fact that he's able to do it with the same amount of power going the opposite way. I remember the first home run we saw as for him as a Dodger in spring training, that was opposite field, and it was just like. It was literally his first game as a Dodger in spring training. It was like his second at bat, and he hits a home run opposite field, and you're like, this is going to be the greatest thing in my life. Like this is this is such a blessing. Like I will this is like God protect this man, because I want to watch this for 10 years. Like, please.
Right? And it's like I'm just talking about him hitting. Like we can even talk about the fact that he wants to steal bases more now too. Like, he's just really so aggressive, even though he's not pitching. And it's just goes back to that conversation of like, because, he's starting to throw again. He keeps saying like he's starting small, X amount of pitches a day, just keep pushing it back every time, little by little. So that whole conversation of should he not go back to pitching? It's like, no, look at this man. He is just wanting to be better. And there's no way he says, I'll just hit and steal bases. There's no way, and we can't let that happen. Not that it is. It's just since people are already bringing that up. He's such an awesome DH, and he could really win his MVP DHing in the National League for the Dodgers, which is crazy.
Yeah, yeah, and not to like, Mookie is still seen as the NL MVP favorite, but I do want to point out that over the last month, Mookie's got 2 home runs. He's hitting a shade below 300. His weighted runs created plus is like 120 something. So he's been good. He's been good to very good, but he's not been elite offensively as we saw over the first couple weeks of the season. And I can't help but wonder if the transition to shortstop is now really starting to take that toll on him, because at the start of it, he talked about the fact that like he felt more motivated offensively because of the fact that he was changing positions. But now you do have the wear and tear of a different position on a daily basis where you're approaching and thinking about the game differently. And suddenly you see his power numbers dip. He's still getting on base a good amount. His understanding of the strike zone this season has been elite. Like he's getting on base like crazy. But his barrel rate is low. His hard hit rate is not good. So it is interesting to see that like maybe if we kind of let Mookie move back to a position that he's a little more comfortable in, maybe we can get those power numbers back up, because over the last month now, literally 2 home runs in the month of May. Not ideal, but I mean, I get it. You look at him and you're like, well, he's a leadoff guy. You're not looking at him to like produce at that level offensively, but also he's Mookie Betts. So you are looking at him to produce at that level offensively. So it is weird to see that power number dip from him. And maybe, again, just let Miguel Rojas play shortstop every day. Let Mookie even play second. He's more comfortable at second than he is at short. Let's let him kind of refocus and readjust to prioritizing his offensive production over what he's doing defensively, because he can still play a very solid defensive second base while he's prioritizing his offensive development and offensive approach on a daily basis. So maybe this is a good time to kind of let him shift back to second.
We've obviously been spoiled with Mookie Betts as a leadoff hitter. He has always delivered better than so many, right? Like what he does as a lead. And he started off so hot. And that could have been just from the excitement of the start of the new season. So you're right. It's like now that here we are, we're in it. We're in the middle of the season. There's no like, oh, it's just the beginning, figuring things out. No. This is a time where like we should be deciding how we move forward for the end of the season. We should be thinking like that. And so it's hard to imagine that him having to go back and forth and like having to adjust constantly when it comes to what he's going to play in on the field position wise, how it doesn't affect you hitting leading off, how you don't feel the pressure when nobody else is hitting. And you're probably thinking of like, all right, I made that mistake last game, shortstop. I got to get better. It's hard to imagine that it's not affecting him. So yes, again, we'll reiterate, let him stay at second base. We'll reiterate that. Yes.
One more thought that I had coming off of specifically the losing streak, because again, the 3-game sweep of the Mets is great, and it was a great recalibration for the Dodgers. It was a the old slump buster, the New York Mets. Thank you very much. But looking at that 5-game losing streak specifically, people instantly, when things go wrong, obviously people want to point fingers, and especially in baseball, if an offense that should be producing isn't producing, people just start pointing at management and say it's their fault. And to an extent, that might be right. I mean, ultimately, the hitters should hit. That's really what it comes down to. If the hitters aren't hitting, they should hit instead. I know that that's not really a hot take, and that's not like a very highbrow conceptual thing to say, but like,
not
to
very
be
sexy.
honest,
Right. Yeah.
But when you play 162 games a season, it's kind of like, yeah, I mean, sometimes you're not going to hit. They should hit instead. That'd be nice. But people were, as I mentioned earlier, people were calling for Robert Van Scoyoc's head. And look, if he were to be fired at some point this season because of the offense just going cold for an extended period of time, fine, like, that's okay. But I do think that people also need to realize that if they find somebody else to take his place, they're going to be like the same person. Like, this is an organizational approach that we're talking about here, where the scouting report and the way that hitters dissect every pitcher on a daily basis, it's not just the hitting coach doing it. Like, there's an entire staff, and both in the dugout and upstairs, who are evaluating all these different things. So you want to call for the hitting coach's head, fine. It's just, don't expect it to like magically change. It could. And I get that the argument is always like, if it's not working, try something else. Maybe that will work instead. Yeah, that's fine. It also might not. And it's kind of more likely that it doesn't, that it just kind of is the same. But if anybody gets fired this season, it's really just about sending a message. And that's fine. Like, if things were bad enough where a message needs to be sent, then send the message. That's important to do. But as we see, guys also don't get fired because an offense goes cold for 5 games. But the one sort of coaching decision that I thought that they were missing the boat on, the one thing that they should have done in order to maybe help themselves and they weren't doing, we've talked about this before. Monse, you've talked about how Chris Taylor's the luckiest man in baseball because of the fact that, like, the Dodgers will still have continued faith in him. And because they win so much, they can roll him out there on a daily basis and hope that he gets it together.
Yeah.
Except if you lose like 4 or 5 games in a row, you can't just keep rolling him out there and hope that he gets it together when the entire rest of the offense also needs to get it together. So it didn't make sense to me that Chris Taylor kept taking the field when Miguel Vargas was not starting. Miguel Vargas was called up because he was ripping it up in AAA. Yes, he was called up because of Muncy's injury, but also he was performing so well offensively in AAA that it was a good move to bring him up as well. And since then, prior to these last couple games in New York, he'd only started 2 games this season. And so why are we still starting Chris Taylor and not giving Miguel Vargas a shot when somebody needs to come in and shake up the offense? And we saw Vargas get a couple hits in New York. His at-bats are definitely better than they were last year. So I like what I've seen from Vargas so far. I still have high hopes that he can produce offensively. Still, watching him in left field is kind of weird. There was a route that he took on a ball. He made the catch, but it was kind of terrifying to watch it. So good on Vargas for producing in New York. But that was the one thing, the one note where I'm like, This doesn't make sense to me. And that was continuing to roll out Chris Taylor and not letting Miguel Vargas get a shot when nobody in the offense was doing anything.
Yeah, I'm with you because, listen, I understand that sometimes you need someone to blame, a scapegoat. I have a hard time blaming the coaches when the athlete needs to show up and do their job. Now, in baseball, it's such a long season that there are slumps. And the only reason the Dodgers would look for a scapegoat or a reason, excuse, is because of the history, right? Because of this is what happens. We get cold at the worst times, and it would be to show a message. It would be to just make it seem like they're doing something. I really thought we were going to see more of Miguel Vargas. Like when we, brought him back up and we sent down James Outman and like Max Muncy got hurt, all of that. I thought we were going to see more of him. I couldn't believe that it was such a slow get going with him after he was so hot. It's like, don't you want to keep that going? You brought him up because he's hot. Keep pushing that. But that is the one thing where it's like, you as a coaches need to figure out whether it's spicing up the lineup 5, 6, 7, 8, but like to keep putting him out there was a big question mark. And I don't have the answer for you, Ryan, as to why they did it. Because I don't, it makes no sense. It makes no sense. But if somebody gets fired, it's really early. It's not going to happen like, but if somebody does get fired, it would be just a scapegoat. And it's like, no. The players, they've got to deliver.
Yeah, exactly. The expectations, especially on this offense, are sky high. And if they completely fall off for a couple of weeks, then you have to do something that will, shake up the bats in the dugout. But, Robert Van Scoyoc is also somebody who can thank his lucky stars that the New York Mets exist, because they may have saved his job. so good on you. Good on you, Robert. And once again, thank you to the New York Mets. Let's wrap up with one final thought here. Well, we are going to give our sickest Dodgers of the week, but first, this is something that we didn't get to discuss last time. Shohei Ohtani Day is now May 17th. In the city of Los Angeles.
Right.
I've seen people on the internet give their hot takes about how like, oh, geez, he's there for, a month and suddenly like LA wants to give him his own day. Oh, this is ridiculous. First of all, technically, as far as Major League Baseball is concerned, he's been in Los Angeles for like 7 or 8 years now.
Exactly.
Come on. We'll throw you a bone, Angels. But here's the other thing. First of all, the Dodgers have actually done this at least a couple times before. Vin Scully Day, I think in the state of California, is July 8th. Justin Turner has his own day in Los Angeles because of course, not only how great he was with the Dodgers, but his work in the community. January 22nd is Justin Turner Day in the city of Los Angeles. And just, today, Monse, is May 29th.
Okay.
And if you have an issue with Shohei Ohtani having his own day just in the city of Los Angeles, let me give you a list of the various holidays that are observed on May 29th alone.
Oh, please tell me.
National Paperclip Day.
Well, obviously.
Learn about Composting Day. Monse, have you learned about composting today? Because today's your only shot.
Is this like trash? Like that's what we're composting here?
Yes. Kitchen scraps, if you will.
Okay.
Apple cores, whatnot. National 529 Day.
What?
It has to do with college savings.
Okay.
Today is the day the Middle Ages ended. It's the end of the Middle Ages Day. So thank you for that. National Biscuit Day. Today is National Biscuit Day.
Do you like biscuits?
It depends.
I want to like biscuits. I want to, but they're always like dry. Even like I can never have enough butter for my biscuit. Mm-hmm. But the biscuits at Lucille's with the honey butter, stop it. But aside from that, I'm not a big biscuit kind of gal.
Lucille, that was the exact biscuit I was thinking of when like thinking about a good, because I was gonna say like when biscuits are done right with the right butter, they're fantastic.
Yeah.
But it's also easy to miss the mark. They can easily be too dry, and even you put butter on it and it's crumbling in your hands. Anyway, it's also National Alligator Day. And,
What's the difference between an alligator and a crocodile?
It's something about their head, and gators are in the water and crocodiles are not as much. I think.
I don't know the answer, so I believe everything you said. I don't know. I don't know the answer.
And finally, National Flip Flop Day.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
Yes, not for the act of flipping and flopping, it is for sandals.
Yes, here in SoCal, flip flops are necessary.
Mm-hmm.
But going back to the people that are mad about Shohei having May 17th declared to him as a day in LA, there's one person who could get mad about this. One person, and I'll allow it. Clayton Kershaw, who has been with the Dodgers for how long and has done what for the Dodgers? That's the only person that could get mad that they don't have a day in LA. It is Kershaw. And the fact that JT's day was on the 22nd when he's number 22, more reason to get mad at the city of LA or the Dodgers for not giving anything to my man Clayton Kershaw. He's the only one that could get mad. Everybody else, shut up.
That is 100%. I agree. Fair point. In our research, we don't believe that Los Angeles has named a Clayton Kershaw Day yet. In the research that we did, I didn't find it. It's possible that they did, but I'm not finding any trace of it. They will at some point. Whenever they retire his number, whenever like. Because they'll retire his number after he goes in the Hall of Fame. It'll all be within like a month of each other, because he's going to be elected and they're going to retire his number instantly. I get that, of course, they've retired Fernando's, kind of breaking the tradition, but Kershaw, we all know he's going to get to the Hall of Fame.
Right, I'm with you. He is the next retired number for the Dodgers. 1,000%.
Yes, so we'll just wait until he gets in the Hall and then formally do it. He's gonna get a statue. He's gonna get a street named after. He should have all of it. Yeah, it's great. But yes, the point is, if you're upset about Shohei Ohtani getting his own day in Los Angeles, every single day there are numerous amounts of random holidays that you have no idea exist. Shohei Ohtani is the rarest person to ever grace the field in Major League Baseball. He is truly a special talent, and what he has done already for the city of Los Angeles and for the Dodgers organization is amazing. And we all know that he's going to finish his career with an incredible resume of accolades and achievements and 10 World Series rings, all with the Dodger LA on them. Yes, that's
a lot big expectations that you've got there, Ryan. But I agree with you. No reason to get mad. There's a paperclip day. People, relax. Like,
all right, let's hand out our sickest Dodgers of the week. We'll both give a nomination, and then Monse, if you could give a third nomination that both you and I agree that Bo would be giving as that third nomination, you know who I'm talking about. So I will start with I think there's two very obvious choices, so one or the other. Let's go Will Smith. I will say Will Smith. Of course, 2 home runs in the series finale in New York, his 100th career home run. Will Smith he's turned it on over this last week. I think he's like 5 home runs in his last 8 games after hitting 4 over the first, whatever amount of days. When his power swing is on, he looks like one of the best, if not the best, right-handed bat in the game. The amount of power he generates from that swing and what he's able to do offensively as a catcher is just so incredibly valuable. To be able to have a catcher who can bat cleanup, it's Mike Piazza. We haven't had that since Mike Piazza, and so Will Smith, an incredible week, 100 home runs as a Dodger. here's to the next 500. let's set. But hey, he of course signed that gigantic extension prior to the season, so we're going to see many more. So let's pile on another 100. Let's pile on another 100 after that. I think you can get to 300 pretty easily.
And
so
we'll give you a day in LA, Will Smith.
Yes.
Don't worry, you get one too. Everyone get one. Yeah, good job, Will Smith. He's a big fan favorite, so it's always nice to see him thrive. But I'm gonna nominate Freddie Freeman on this one because when we were in that 5-game skid, we were 0 for 22 with runners in scoring position until he had that RBI double and it snapped that streak that we did not want to keep going. We still lost that game, but in the last week, he has had 24 at-bats. He's had 8 hits, so he's even batting a little bit above his average right now in the last couple of games when everybody else seems to be in a slump. He broke that big slump we were in, got us to, get going definitely for the Mets because, again, the Mets aren't good. But he stopped that streak even though we lost. So, Freddie Freeman, thank you for finally getting a hit when we had runners in scoring position. Thank you.
You did it.
Yes. Yeah.
And one more nomination for the sickest Dodger of the week. Monse,
Honorary mention. Yes, absolutely necessary. Cameron Brink, the rookie for the WNBA Sparks team in LA. If you guys saw, she should be the sickest player because when they introduced her to Shohei Ohtani, all of a sudden Ohtani didn't need an interpreter. No. He knew exactly how to speak English and he knew all the jokes. He was laughing. He was smiling. All of a sudden, he's good. Cameron Brink brings out the best in Shohei Ohtani. So I'm going to make her the sickest Dodger of the week because definitely Shohei liked her. And all of a sudden, did not need an interpreter. So good job, Cameron.
Well, we do know that Shohei is a big fan of women basketball players. So,
yes,
he was suddenly inspired. Good work. Did the Sparks win against the Fever the other night?
They did. So they won the second game in Indiana.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So,
despite
but
Caleb
they lost.
30. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. That night.
Okay.
Yeah.
So our friend Sam got to see them win in person. So good.
Yes, he did.
Yes, we got to enjoy Caitlin Clark's performance. Well, hey, all right. Well, hey, we got 3 nominations there for sickest Dodger of the week: Will Smith, Freddie Freeman, Cameron Brink.
That's right.
Let us know in the comments who you've got for the sickest Dodger of the week. So let's wrap this one up here. Again, Bo Benson did not join us. Since we can't put his name on the screen, I can't try to spell it. So I don't know. I just don't know how it's not B-O. It's the other way you spell Bo that apparently I'm incapable of doing. So is on Twitter at Bo not
A-U.
There it is.
There you go. That's
there it is.
Bo not Jackson. That's what you got.
And of course, I'm at Ryan Bershinger. She is at Monse Bolaños, Monse Bolanos.
Very good, Ryan.
It's good amazing. Job. Like I'm good at spelling. I swear I am.
Things.
And the second I have to on the spot spell something that's on the screen, my brain breaks and I'm like, what are you doing? But I got that one right. And for those of you who are listening audio, that's the right spelling. I did it correctly.
Correct. You did.
There's a C in my last name. Figure out where it is. So this is the Sick Podcast, the Dodger Zone. Be sure to like and subscribe. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, follow us here on youtube.com and follow us on Twitter at SickPodDodgers. So Monse, hopefully not another 5-game losing streak that we have to talk about. We don't get to play the Mets next week, so we can't bank on that.
We're playing the Rockies, so
we are. That's true.
There's a good chance it keeps going.
If they have a 5-game losing streak with 3 of those games being to the Rockies, then we're absolutely talking about Robert Van Scoyoc's job, because my goodness. We do get to see both Paul Skeens and Jared Jones next week against the Pirates. That should be a good time. I got to watch them both today. They played a doubleheader with the Tigers. Jared Jones got kind of lit up though, so that one wasn't as fun, but Paul Skeens dominated again, which is just it's great to see a new young ace, because like he truly, I fully believe like he's next. Like it's been a while since we've had like a true ace, that not since Kershaw really. I mean, like Verlander and Scherzer and Garrett Cole and DeGrom on occasion. Like Skeens, I believe, can be in that atmosphere. That's what I'm saying.
And he has the like X factor to be like a star. Like kids are going to the game and they're wearing little mustaches. Like already he is it, you know, like you can't teach somebody to have the X factor. He has it. And then he just pitches every ball over 100 miles an hour. Yeah. So what else could you want in a star? And his girlfriend is Livy Dunn. Get the hell out of here. Like life is just not fair sometimes. And look at that situation.
Well, hopefully the Dodgers bring him back down to earth a little bit. Let's see. You can be dominant against
the Dodger Stadium.
Yes. The Dodgers have to like travel like to Pittsburgh. Or they're coming back to LA, and then they're from New York, and then they're going to travel to Pittsburgh. It's really weird. I don't know how that happened. There's people who are paid more than us to figure these things out. Why I could do that. All right. Yeah. So until next time, this is the Sick Podcast, the Dodgers Zone. Thank you all so much for joining us. Domo arigato. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast, the Dodgers Zone, on YouTube, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.